Hello everyone, welcome to the lecture number 5, Primitive Data Types in C#. In this lecture we will see what are primitive data types, and if you're new to my channel, please subscribe it and also press the bell icon. So let's start it. What we're gonna learn in this lecture, first of all we'll talk about what is primitive data types. Then we'll see what are variables, what are constant, how to declare variable, what are the rules to define a variable, and we'll see some naming conventions, and at the end of the lecture we'll do some coding. So what are primitive data types? Primitive data types are those data types that are predefined in a .NET framework. For example, integer, short, boolean, character, these all are primitive data types. I cannot mention all the primitive data types here, but I am mentioning those which is most commonly used. I categorize the primitive data types into 4 parts. Number 1 is integral, number 2 is real, number 3 is character, and then boolean. In the first column you can see C# type or C# data type keywords. First column defines how we can declare a data type in a C#. Second column is for .NET types. Each C# types binds to a .NET type when we compile application. Third column represents how many numbers of bytes we can store for each data type, and fourth column is for ranges. You do not need to worry about ranges, you can just remember first 2 or 3. Okay, there is nothing tricky about primitive data types, but real numbers have some significance. There are 3 types of data types related to real numbers. Number 1 is float, double, then decimal. Guys, you can see I have highlighted some lines. In first line, what I am doing, I am declaring a variable of float type, and I am also initializing it with 1.2f. So what is actually f? I am telling my compiler, my C# compiler, that this 1.2, this number is of a float type. I am explicitly doing it. And for decimal, and for the second line, you can see I am declaring a variable of a decimal type, and I am initializing it 1.2m. And for double number, I am initializing it with a 1.2. Why we have no suffix for double type number? In C#, compiler automatically picks the double type number, and for float and decimal we have to tell the compiler that this type is of a float type and which type is of a decimal type. We use suffix f to declare it as a float type, and for decimal we have to put m. What are variables and constant? Variables are names that we give to storage location in memory. On the other hand, constants are immutable values, the values that cannot be changed throughout life of the application. For example, we have application in which we are calculating the circumference of a circle. The formula to calculate the circumference of a circle is 2 pi r. Here we have pi, which is constant, so we will declare pi as a constant in our application. Okay guys, now let's see how we can declare a variable in C#. First of all, you have to tell the compiler about the data type of the variable, then you have to give it a name, then you have to put a semicolon. And in second line, what I am doing, I am declaring and also initializing a variable with 1. Guys, keep in mind that C# is case sensitive language. You can see I have 2 variables, number with small letters and number with first capital letter. These 2 variables are different identifiers. In third line, you can see I am declaring a constant. How I am doing that? First of all, I am putting a keyword const, then I am telling the data type of the constant, then I am giving it a name and initializing it with some value. Here we have some rules to define a variable. Number 1, variable should not start with a number. Always start a variable with a character. Second point is that there will be no space between the variable. Third point is that your variable should not be a keyword. Always use some other user-friendly name to declare a variable rather than keywords. Always use meaningful names for variables. This is a good coding practice if you are declaring a variable with user-friendly or with a meaningful name, because if other developers are trying to understand your code, then they can easily understand it. Here we have some naming conventions to declare a variable. We have 3 naming conventions. Number 1 is camel case, number 2 is Pascal case, and number 3 is Hungarian notation. Hungarian notation is not in use, but we can use camel case for variables and Pascal case for constants. In camel case, each first word of identifier will be in small case, and the rest of the words of an identifier will have first capital letter. For Pascal case, every first character of every word will be uppercase. As you can see, I highlighted the first character of each word in camel case, and in Pascal case also. For Hungarian notation, you have to declare a variable by prefixing it with the type of the variable, like I am prefixing it with a str. str means this variable is of a string type. Okay guys, now let's see some coding examples. Okay guys, here you can see I have Visual Studio 2019 opened, and I am creating a new project. Here we have three filters. First filter is for language. We are choosing C#. Which operating system we are targeting Windows. And which application we are developing console application. After selecting all three flavors, you can see we have two type of console application. First application is targeting .NET Core framework, and the other application is targeting .NET framework. Here you guys can have a question, why I am creating console application. Guys, it's a good practice if you are learning a new technology and you start with the console application, because you do not need to worry about the UI of the application. You just can focus on your learning. So I am targeting .NET framework for this console application. Let's create. So here you have to put the name of the application. Let's give it a name, demo framework. In second, it is asking for location where you want to save your application, and in a third it is asking for a solution name. So what is solution name? Under one solution we can have multiple projects. Like I am creating this project which is .NET framework. This project will under a solution. So one solution for one application can contain multiple projects. Like for now I am creating console application, and if we need some web services, some web application or some Angular application, then we can also develop it under this solution. And in third drop down, it is asking for which framework we are creating application. We are creating application for .NET framework with latest version, which is 4.7.2. Then click on create. Okay guys, here you go. Here at the right side in a solution explorer, you can see the folder structure of a application. As I said, we have solution named as demo framework, and under this solution we have one project which is console application. And under this project we have multiple files and folders like program.cs file, app.config file, we have references, we have properties. So let's see what's all that terms. Program.cs file is a main file in console application. You can see we have a namespace here, and under namespace we have one class, and under one class we have one method. If you have no idea what are namespaces, what are classes, what are functions, then please see my second video about the architecture of .NET framework. Then you can better understand what is the architecture of a .NET framework. So this program.cs is main class in our console application, and we have one main method here. You can see app.config file. In this file you can save the configuration for your application. Like if you are using some settings for application or you are using some credentials, you can save here. Under references we can see multiple class libraries. These are class libraries I am talking about in architecture of a .NET framework. Okay guys, now let's practice our concepts. What we have learned in theoretical part, we have learned real numbers, data type, how we can declare a variable. We see naming convention and rules to declare a variable. Now let's see it one by one. First of all, let's see how we can declare a variable. To declare a variable, you have to put the data type of the variable, then you can give it a name and then put a semicolon. So let's see how we can do it. Data type, name and semicolon. This is called declaration. Similarly, if you want to initialize a variable with any value, you can initialize it like, for example, my integer id, and I am assigning it a value like this. If you remember, I said in a theoretical part that C# is case sensitive language. Now let's create another variable with same name as well, and make its first character capital. Now we have two variables, both are ID. So in C Sharp, these variables are different because C Sharp is case sensitive. This variable is different from this variable. Let's see how we can declare a constant in C Sharp. To declare a constant, you have to put const keyword, then you have to tell the data type of the constant, then constant name, and initialize it with any number. If you are declaring a variable, there is no need to initialize it until you use it in your application. But for constant, you have to initialize it at the time of declaration. Now let's move toward the concepts of real numbers. We have three types of real numbers data types, like double, decimal, and float. If you are declaring a constant or variable which have points, by default this number will be a double. For example, I am declaring a variable of double type. So this variable is of a double type. Let's declare another variable of a float type. You can see it is showing me error because by default each point number is of a double type. So how we can tell the compiler that this number is of a float type? We have to put f at the end of the number, like f. Similarly for decimal, if you are declaring a decimal, you have to tell the compiler explicitly that this number is of a decimal type, like this. Okay, now let's see what naming conventions we have in C Sharp. We have three types of naming conventions in C Sharp. Number one is camel case, number two is Pascal case, and number three is Hungarian notation. In camel case, the first character of each variable which is in camel case will be small. The rest of the words in a variable will have first capital letter. As you can see, I am declaring a variable named as national ID, and this variable is in camel case. You can see first character of first word is in small case and the rest of the words have first capital letter. Similarly for Pascal case, first character of every variable or integer will be a capital letter. Like this, you can see I have constant named as national ID, and the first character of each word is capital. For Hungarian notation, the identifier prefix with the type of the variable. For example, I have string type variable named as first name. So if I am declaring a variable in using Hungarian notation, I have to put the data type of the variable as a prefix. Like this variable is of a string type, I have to put str in front of at the start of the variable. Okay, let's see some more primitive data types. If you are declaring character, you have to initialize a character with a character in single quotation, like character is equal to single quotation and one character, which is Unicode. Now let me give you more important concept in C Sharp which is relevant to var type. We have multiple variables in our application like this. You can see these all variables have different data types: byte, decimal, string, then char. Let's change their data type to var. So what var will do? It tells the compiler to figure out the type of the variable at compilation time, and the type of the variable depends on the value you assign to a variable. For example, this variable have integer type, so if I hover over the variable, its type is integer. And similarly for string type, if I hover over the variable, you can see its type is string. So at compile time, variable let the compiler to identify the types of the variable. Okay guys, that's it for this lecture. See you in a next video, and practice all this concept at your end and let me know if you have any question.